I'm Coulter Wonkite. I'm already into the 420, damn it.
So what are you doing?
Nothing.
Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.
What's the matter with that cat there?
Must be full of reefer.
Full of reefers?
Yeah, man.
Mean that cat's high?
Sailing.
Sailing?
Lightly.
We now wander off the beaten path with an update from the Reefer Reporter.
Hello and welcome to the Reefer Reporters, your audio digest of Canadian and international cannabis news. You're with your host, Kim Cooper, and myself, Al Graham. This week, we're going to discuss and review the news from the week of March the 20th to the 26th, 2018. Hello, Kim. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good today, Al. I'm all excited and geared up for my up-and-coming trip south of the border this week.
Oh, going south of the border. Are you going to a legal state?
I am. I'm heading down to Nevada. So I will be staying in the city of wonderful Sin City, Las Vegas, Nevada. And while I'm there, I will be touring some of the facilities that are available in the city.
Nice. It's always, I don't know, do you have to take some type of medical ID or is it legal? What is the status there?
The status is legal recreational in Nevada, in Las Vegas, in the city of Las Vegas. So no medical is required. I am taking my medical documentation with me in hopes that'll help me out with some goodwill, hopefully, for medical patients with some compassionate pricing, because my understanding is the prices are pretty high down there.
I could just imagine. I'm sure we will get a report for the Reefer Report when you're away.
Yeah, for sure. I'll be chiming in on live feed on social media through Instagram and Facebook while I'm down there and posting many posts, and I'll have a full report on our upcoming shows after I get back.
Good. Looking forward to that. Well, let's get going with today's show. What are we going to start off with?
I think we're going to start off right here at home and talk a little bit about Health Canada and the government of Canada and what we're expecting with some of the legalization aspects that are coming right here at home in Canada.
Yes, it looks like they want to, they've been talking to some people about the packaging that they want for the cannabis, and they say that over the last 2 years that they have consulted extensively with their plans to legalize and regulate and restrict access to cannabis, according to Bill Blair. So they rolled the things out. And what did we see, Kim?
Well, we've seen a real big shove for plain packaging, limited restrictions on logo materials, no colorful endorsements, no endorsements from celebrities or sponsors or otherwise. Their proposals for plain packaging, I don't know. I think the plain clear baggie has been pretty plain packaging that we've been using for the last 30 years.
Yes. There were some really good examples I saw on Facebook and on social media. Some clear packaging, which included the sandwich bag, glass jars, the little storage jars, big mason jars, all very clear and plain packaging.
Yeah. Some of the labeling that they're including on these so-called plain packages kind of takes it away from the plain packaging. Seeing some of the mock-ups being done that are being represented to as examples of future packaging products. I mean, the warnings that they've got on these things, some of them, they're lined up. You would think that the product was radioactive.
Yes, you would. That's for sure. Let's see. Let's go through a couple here. Regular use of cannabis can increase the risk of schizophrenia or psychosis and schizophrenia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what happened to keep out of reach of children? Major majority, use at your own risk. What happened to those things?
Cannabis. They say cannabis smoke is harmful. That's the primary sentence, but the secondary sentence says that harmful chemicals found in tobacco smoke are also found in cannabis smoke. Now, there is a research that says that, yes, I'm not arguing against that, but the end result is much different, don't you think?
Absolutely. Cannabis is not known to cause cancer. We do not have the additives in cannabis products that are available and readily in all tobacco products, the benzenes and all the chemicals that these things are sprayed with and treated with do not exist in cannabis or the cannabis plant. And the way that this is laid out, it sounds like it's as bad, if not worse for you than tobacco products that you buy in the corner store.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, that's just not so.
No, exactly. Well, they don't have any rat poison in cannabis. Not yet, anyways.
Yeah, so far so good, right?
No, yeah, so far so good. As long as, it stays out of the hand of that big cigarette manufacturing company, right?
Yeah.
Another warning is cannabis can be addictive. That's the primary sentence. The secondary sentence says up to half the people use cannabis on a daily basis. Writing is so small.
I know.
Yeah. Probably they have health problems using cannabis. They say 1 in 11 people use cannabis will become addicted, and up to 1 in 2 who use cannabis daily will become addicted.
I don't know where they're getting these stats from, but that is just propaganda, plain and simple. Cannabis is not addictive. If your body is craving cannabis, then you're craving the endocannabinoids that are coming from the cannabis and feeding your endocannabinoid system, which operates our daily functions and our whole operating system inside our internal bodies. It's what's keeping us healthy. It's what's keeping all of our other regulatory processes inside our bodies working normally. They're required, and that's why it stays in our system longer. The same as, say, vitamin A, B, C, D, all of them. They stay in our system because they're required to make our systems operate and function properly. And that's the same deal with the endocannabinoids. And that's the only reason that a body would crave them, is if they're required.
Usually what research has shown too is people who are deficient in cannabinoids are also ones who are more apt to be ill with an immune illness.
Yes, that's right. Cancers, any autoimmune deficiency, illness, stomach problems, all kinds of things.
Well, there is a list of 14 proposed health warnings that must appear on the packages, and they have to rotate. I'm glad they don't all have to be on there at once. They're going to rotate them throughout a year.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Now, they're also going to, with those warnings, they're also going to put on, it makes sense, put on THC levels, CBD levels, things that people are, really interested in. That's the important thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that stuff I expect to see. But some of the warnings that they're coming up with on these things, all they're doing is reinforcing the propaganda. There is absolutely no fact-based information in probably 50% of the warning labels.
Yeah. It looks like they've gone from that nice gold bag that they did for the medical patients over to a white bag.
Yeah, plain packaging. So it'll either be plain white more than likely or see-through.
Yeah. Meanwhile, if you compare this packaging to alcohol packaging, especially some drink called Fucked Up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it reads fucked up on the label on the can. When you've tipped the can upside down and you're taking a drink, it literally says fucked up. And this is the alcohol, an alcoholic beverage. It's high in alcohol, 2 or 3 of these, and you've got a good glow going on for sure. Very fancy package with all, cartoon lettering, bright colors, all of that to attract the eye of young people for sure. Is what it's geared to. And that's fine for our alcoholic beverages, apparently.
That's right. Well, the big shiny, what is that? It's a big red stop sign with a cannabis leaf in the middle. That's going to look really attractive.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Think of the children.
Think of the children. Yeah, I think of the children every time I see one having an epileptic seizure, and I'm thinking, geez,
That's right.
Thinking they could have some cannabis.
That's
help out them for sure.
So. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on from packaging on to the Senate here in Canada.
Yeah, staying right here in Canada and up into Ottawa now in the Canadian Senate. Cannabis bill passes the House of Commons, or it passes in the Senate. It's gone through its first hurdle, and we got a majority of yays on the vote.
Yes, yeah, 44 senators in favor, 29 were opposed at the second reading. Now we'll move on to the study part with committees and everything to go over things. Now, some people, why this all of a sudden was big in the news is because some people believe that there was a chance that this was going to fail at the second reading because there were so many liberal and independent senators that were out on the road doing things, and they actually had to call some of them back just to make sure that this didn't fail, because if this had failed, it was over.
That's right. There's no going back. As soon as it fails at the Senate level, then the bill dies. There's no going back. There's no for more revisions or anything. It fails there, it's dead. And it has to be reintroduced in the next legislative assembly, which begins in September. So it would have died on the floor right there had this not taken place. It was a bit of a nail biter. People, like you say, were being recalled into the House, and they said, no, you have to get back here. We don't care what other engagements you have. You need to do the vote on this.
Now, did you happen to hear the audio of some of the stuff that was being said by the senators?
I heard bits and parts and pieces. I've been extremely busy all week trying to get ready for this vacation that I have up and coming. I was in and out of my office while it was playing, and I heard parts of it. Yeah, well, it was a nail biter, and I mean, some of the observations and questions, you just had to shake your head and say, what are you guys talking about?
Yes, I saw some comments on online, social media comments and stuff, and there was other advocates that were just shaking. They couldn't believe it. Like, how can I even listen to this with some of the quotes? Because it was so bad. And then I think, there's some people out there that don't like the cannabis legalization because it's not what they envision it to be. And I'm thinking, well, those people who are really negative, they're the alternative.
Yeah, that's right. A lot of people are up in arms saying this is not legalization. It's prohibition 2.0. It's not what I voted for. It's not what I want. I would rather have it back to the way it was. We're never going back to the way it was. That's just not going to happen. So our choices today as it stands is working with the government that we have on some sort of a legalization platform that we can evolve with and grow with, and eventually some of the restraints will be loosened over time, and it will be an evolving thing. The other alternative is we could still have a government in like Harper or the PCs who want to vote this off the table. Yeah,
well, I see here that one conservative senator, he summed up basically everything by calling Bill C-45, which some of the advocates out there will agree with, a piece of shit.
Yeah.
But he had to later apologize for using that kind of language on the floor. Conservative leader Senator Larry Smith, he says the government has decided to steamroll ahead, refusing to listen to the recommendations of medical experts, law enforcement experts, and even areas that have legalized cannabis. Well, I don't know, Larry, but there seems to be an awful lot of law enforcement and medical experts on all kinds of panels that's recommending things to the government, and I don't see very many advocates involved in those, so there's obviously somebody talking to them.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we can all find medical experts in any field that are going to disagree with the status quo, so to speak, and disagree with, the science behind it, because, their opinions are the driving force in their recommendations. You can find those kind of people in any society on any side of any argument. That doesn't mean that what they're saying and what they're talking about is credible.
Correct. Now, I guess moving forward with this bill, they're going to do the committee thing. The Senate committees studying Bill C-45 can recommend amendments to the bill. Those amendments will be debated at the Senate chamber and then voted on. Things can move on to the House, and if they agree with those changes, then we're a go.
And then it goes to final assent, and the government is still up in the air and undecided on how many days exactly it will take to reach legality after final assent.
Yeah, because they're going to hold the vote on or before June 7th in the Senate. It goes to royal assent if it passes up in the upper chamber and everything. And then the government, even though it's passed, they can hold off implementing it. And that's what they're talking about, doing that 8 to 12 week to allow businesses to get set up.
Yeah. So we're still several months away.
meanwhile, patients who have access to product, that they could grow out in their yard or whatever, if they only have an indoor grow license, technically they wouldn't be able to grow those 4 plants outside until the law was implemented, even though they have a supply and they're not waiting for anybody.
Yeah, that's right. Right. So, I mean, nobody's growing this summer.
No.
In the Canadian climate that we have, by the time this goes through, there will not be time to have plants out in your yard this summer. Whether or not that's by design, well, that's debatable.
Yeah, it is. It is. I guess somebody like yourself who's way up north, there's no way. Maybe somebody down in the northern end, I don't know if you could get off a auto flower that does things really quick. But
maybe an autoflower or a low ride or something. That's a fast bloom. But that's about it.
Yeah, that's right about it. Okay, Kim, that is it as far as where we can stay here. I think it's time for us to jump on the 420 airline.
Absolutely. Where are we headed to today?
Well, our first trip is going to be to Alberta. And why Alberta? That is because in Alberta, they've decided to add another 10% tax onto the cannabis producers.
Yeah, this tax is a new excise tax in the province of Alberta only that is being slapped on legal producers or craft growers, pretty much anybody that is going to be selling their product to sale in the regular market is going to be slapped with an extra 10%. Now they're saying, it's not on the general public, it's not an extra tax on people, but there's no way in hell an LP is going to swallow this tax.
No. They're going to collect that tax from, the government's going to collect the tax, give it to Alberta. And the reason that they're adding this tax is because Alberta is the only province that doesn't have a PST.
Yeah, no PST, so they want to take their money that way. Slapping a tax on a licensed producer or anybody doing the sales in Alberta, I can see that being passed down to the consumers.
For sure.
The LPs are not going to absorb that tax. There's no way. So it'll mean increased prices for the product in the end for your retail sales, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly. So much for same. Well, maybe the prices still end up being the same as other places once this tax is added on there. But, they're looking at making all kinds of money on this. And, it's just... they don't want to talk about that. They just want to talk about it saving the children. But there's all kinds of tax to be collected. And just so you know, the province of Alberta says that they're already spending $70 million just to get ready for legalization.
Yeah. According to the article in the CBC News, the Alberta Gaming and Liquor Commission is also able to take the markup on sales made through the online system, with the amount limited to covering the cost of the AGLC's operation.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. Just more money.
More money. Always.
That's right. Okay, we're going to fire up that jet again.
Awesome.
And this time, we're leaving Canada completely.
Yes, we are.
We are going to go over to the Netherlands and Denmark because their government agrees to pay for free medicinal cannabis for terminally ill patients. We're not adding a tax like we are here in Canada, an excise tax on our medical cannabis. They're giving it to patients.
Fantastic move out of the Netherlands. That's helping patients. I mean, this is the way to go. As you said, Al, here in Canada, when legalization becomes legal across the board for non-medicinal use, patients will be paying a larger price for that because we will have an added 10% excise tax added onto our medicinal cannabis. In the Netherlands, finally somebody thinking clearly. Free cannabis or low-cut rate cannabis for patients. This is fantastic.
Yeah, free for terminally ill, and for other people who are non-terminally ill patients, there's a 50% rebate.
Yeah.
Drop off right there. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're not terminal, you get your cannabis at 50% of the cost. If you're terminal and you're at the end of your life, the last thing you want to worry about is the cost of your medication. You're damn right it should be free. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, apparently this is some new program that they're going to be doing. They've been doing some experiments with it over there, and this all will start for everybody come January the 1st, 2019, so at the end of this year. But it is retroactive, and right now there's 200 people who are a part of that program. Yeah.
Wonderful thing going on over there in Denmark. Just fantastic.
Yeah. Well, Health spokesman says, as I see it, it is important that medicinal cannabis is subsidized so that everyone can benefit from it regardless of their income. Wow, yeah. Because here in Canada, when they first started talking about the ACMR program and all that, there was parts in there that said it was for patients who could afford it.
Yeah. That's right. So low income was cut right out of the picture altogether. Just ridiculous amounts of restraints that we have going on, and extra costs and extra fees, and patients just being left out of the picture altogether in North America. Seeing these things going on in Europe, in the advances that they're making, I don't know why we're not doing the same here.
Yeah, exactly. And there are so many people who could benefit from it, who aren't getting access because they're terminally ill. And tell me where a terminally ill person is working. Yeah. Big bucks to make, to do this. So, for sure.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. So fantastic. We'll have to keep our eye on that program and watch for extensions coming off of it.
Yeah, I completely agree. So that was good. All right. That was from CPH Post in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Good to see. All right, Kim, it's time for our break. So you got a little preview of what the Canada history is when we get back from the break?
Yes, we're going to go back 3 years ago today, and we're going to or 3 years ago this month, and talk a little bit about rights to extract.
Good stuff. All right. Okay, during the break, listeners are going to hear a cannabis TV news report from a station called One Caribbean News, Caribbean. They're located in the Bahamas, and the clip is on its legalization situation there. Plus, when we come back, you're going to hear about some sunshine in a bag. You're listening to the Reefer Reporters live here at lifestyleradio.net, Spreaker. And if you want to, you can catch the podcast afterwards on iTunes.
The conversation on the legalization and decriminalization of marijuana took an official form when a recent town hall meeting hosted by a CARICOM commission sought to find out how Bahamians feel on the hot button issue. Professor Rosemarie Bell Antoine explained that the meetings were happening in all CARICOM member states and would result in a report for the heads of government meeting in July.
Felt, and of course CARICOM would have felt it, we could not do this work without giving a voice to Caribbean peoples, and that is why we are here.
Perspectives were varied and included issues related to addiction, negative health reactions, positive health benefits, so-called irrational treatment of users by the justice system, de-escalation of gang-related crime, and the potential for agribusiness, all linked to marijuana.
I hate the fact that people smoke cigarettes, which is filled with over 500 chemicals. But yet I cannot smoke a plant.
Style of regulation, there's lots of opportunities. It all depends how the government and the private sector involved, how they would wish to go forward.
If they legalize it, guess what? I ain't gotta buy it from nobody. I got a bucket full of seeds. Now, what I can spend $5 for a joint for when I can grow myself a whole plant is it turns criminals out of our own sons. We're turning criminals out of our own sons.
Legalization ends the violence. What did Portugal do? Portugal legalized. The violence stopped overnight.
Addiction destroys families. I don't know if any of you have had any relatives that have been addicted.
The comments were chronicled by the panel and will be merged with other perspectives on the controversial issue, which continues to grab headlines in the Bahamas. DeAndre Hamilton reporting for One Caribbean News.
Are you looking for cannabis news, education, and people's opinions? Are you looking to learn what Canadian and international cannabis advocates are doing, not only now, but what got them to this point in their lives, and what does the future hold for them? Do you want to learn how patients are using cannabis as their daily medication, or learn how their cannabis use helps them with their medical condition? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then I'm going to suggest to you to tune in to Lifestyle Radio. Catch their live weekly shows and have your questions and concerns answered and find the experience you're looking for. Monday, catch your weekly news broadcast with the Reefer Reporters. Then on Wednesday, get several hours worth of cannabis public education. We get things started with cannabis and coffee with Marijuana. Then tune in and catch Pottawa with Russell Barth, who calls himself the world's angriest pothead. Finish up your evening with the award-winning Pace Radio Show with Al Graham and joint host Kim Cooper and Alicia Yashishin. No week would be complete without tuning into Friday night's program, the 420 Radio Show featuring Al Rapp and the 420 Radio crew, Mary Jane Baker and Marcel Gignac. Cannabis is a lifestyle, and you can catch all your cannabis lifestyle information right here at lifestyleradio.net or at our sister site, 420radio.ca.
In 2017, the Canadian government announced that although recreational cannabis would be federally legal, its distribution and sale would be determined by individual provinces. Later that fall, the province of Ontario announced its proposed legal framework, that a subsidiary of the LCBO be the sole proprietor of cannabis in our province, essentially creating a one-party monopoly. This government-controlled monopoly could result in longer wait times, supply issues, and insufficient experience due to lack of proper consultation with the pre-existing industry. The provincial government believes this framework will restrict access to children and help eliminate the black market, but this proposed action will only push illicit suppliers further underground. Meanwhile, over the past 2 decades, there's been a growing industry of intelligent, savvy, and responsible cannabis entrepreneurs who have been working hard to provide access and education around the medicinal, therapeutic, and recreational uses of cannabis. We are Sensible Ontario. We're not new, but we're excited to meet you. Visit our website now and donate to become a part of Making Sense.
If you'd like to learn more about Sensible Ontario, go to sensibleontario.ca.
I'm feeling glad I got sunshine in a bag. I'm useless, not for long. The future is coming on. Hey, I'm feeling glad I got sunshine in a bag. I'm useless, not for long. My future is coming on. It's coming on. It's coming on. It's coming on. It's coming on.
Hey, we are back, and we are live here at lifestyleradio.net, and we are also back from our quick medication session. Before we get to more news, though, it's time for Kim's Canon History segment. What's up today, Kim? We gave us a little primer before the break.
Yeah, we're going to talk about extracts. It was 3 years ago, well, over 3 years ago now, that we had the Smith extract trial, and that was led by Kurt Tusaw, who was representing Owen Smith, who was arrested for making cannabis-infused products for the Victoria Cannabis Buyers Club, where he was employed at that time as a baker. This wound up into the Supreme Court of Canada and took place in Ottawa. And the court trial there lasted a couple of days. There was a very large event filled with cannabis supporters. You were there, Al. I was there. We didn't even know each other at that time when we were both there. We both have pictures of some of the same scenarios going on, and neither one of us even knew each other at the time.
No, we
so
didn't.
It's funny how we crossed paths over time and still had yet to meet. But it was 3 years ago this month that we finally got the verdict back for that trial, and we won, of course, allowing extracts to be made and traded amongst patients and consumed legally amongst patients. Kirk Tusaw representing did a fantastic job in front of the justices, and it was a great day in history when we got that verdict in.
Sure was. That's when the judge found Section 4 and 5 of the CDSA was unconstitutional, and part of that had to do with the patient's trafficking, as they call it, to each other.
Yes, that's correct. And that's where we wound up with patients helping patients and all kinds of little tidbits like that that help patients right now and keep us safe from law enforcement.
That's right. That's right. Well, Kim, during the break, well, we were off. I don't know if you noticed, but the plane left Netherlands and it came back to Canada.
It did. During the break, we were in the air and flying back home to talk about Canada and the federal government's program that accepts or denies cannabis growers to be sold under LP system here.
Yes, well, there's a Financial Post report that says that the federal government rejects 3 cannabis growers for every one that they accepted.
Yeah, pretty low numbers. As of February 1st, Health Canada, which oversees the legal medical cannabis program, had granted 89 licenses and rejected 268, according to data.
Yes, and the numbers right now, we have 93 LPs. The process is a grueling multi-year process, and people are rejected for a wide range of reasons, according to Deepak Anand, Vice President of Government Relations for a consulting company, Cannabis Compliance Incorporated.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, the amounts, numbers, the hoops that you have to pass through are the reason for these ghastly numbers. It's a rigid, stringent program that you have to go through with Health Canada. One little thing out of place and your application is denied. Far more are being denied, as we can see from these stats, than are ever going to be allowed. And if this industry is going to succeed and grow, there's going to have to be some changes.
Oh, for sure. Well, we know they've already made some changes, but there still needs to be more changes. And they say the biggest concern is making sure that there's no possible involvement of the black market or organized crime, or the concerns about diverting products out of the business.
I mean, really? Come on. We've got legalization happening across the board. The whole system has to change. We've allowed for some minor criminal records to be allowable, to be had by some micro growers, some processors, legal producers, all of those things. So things are changing within the system. So the Health Canada has to get on board with these changes and start looking at these applications in different light.
Well, I see here in British Columbia, they've had 100 applicants. 100 applicants were rejected, while only 18 were granted, whereas Ontario has had 96 refusals, but has had a much higher success rate with 48 licenses granted. Now, they say here that if you've been selling your extra product to a dispensary and the government knows this, then you're SOL.
Yeah, because you're already diverting to an illegal operation. All dispensaries are currently illegal. If there's a storefront available for you to purchase cannabis, it is an illegal entity under the eyes of the law. Well, these stores are everywhere, across the board, from one end of the country to the other. In pretty much every province, you can find a dispensary, at least one in every province.
Yeah.
They're out there. So they're getting their product from somewhere.
Well, there may be some changes coming with Bill C-45, once it's passed, because Health Canada acknowledges that there are individuals who have a history of nonviolent and they're very low risk. For example, a person who was caught with a simple possession of cannabis, or maybe we're growing 4 plants, that would be a criminal record, and that would disallow them for being participants in this. But, it's nothing. It's not a severe crime, as they call it, and they shouldn't be left out of in an opportunity like this. And so there's going to be some changes by the looks of it in Bill C-45.
Yeah, well, I certainly hope so, because they're labeling all crime as, well, you're a criminal, you've got a criminal record. That means you could be part of organized crime, so you're automatically out. The whole idea of just linking everybody with a criminal record into organized crime, that's preposterous. If you want to find out about organized crime, then look into that. If nobody's associated with organized crime, then there should be no reason they should be omitted from the program if that is your only objective.
Well, probably the only good news for these companies that have been rejected is after the rule changes, reapply.
Yeah, reapply. Long process, pain in the ass to do. People are still going to be upset about it. Well, why should I have to? I've already done it once. They should just reopen the case. We understand all that, but unfortunately, you're dealing with the government and things, that's the way they work. Yeah. But once the laws are operating and they're passed, absolutely reapply. Push the agenda so that people that are knowledgeable about this plant actually have a place in the industry.
Well, here's the government, talking about black market cannabis and worrying about it getting into the LPs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And here we have in our next story, a Globe and Mail report that Ottawa will allow black market cannabis strains to enter the licensed industry.
Yeah.
Wow. Where did the licensed industry start with the...
The licensed industry started with MMAR growers and their genetic strains that they've introduced. And that's how we all got started. All cannabis in the LP system right now came from originally black market seeds. The stuff that the government of Canada started with way back when, at the beginning of all of this, was basically hemp, and low-grade hemp to boot.
But technically, if it was the only seeds that we were allowed to buy legally, then the MMAR growers should have only had that strain to offer to the LP. So it was, there was obviously piles of different strains being grown by the growers because they were getting them from storefronts or wherever, and they sold them. Some of them sold them to the licensed producers. So didn't this already happen several years ago?
Yeah, it did. And they were just very, very quiet about it. But now they're being a little bit noisier about it. And their plan is, they're saying that they will be able to introduce new strains by inducting craft cannabis growers as small producers into the LP market. So basically what's going to happen, if you have a small grow and you're a craft cannabis operator, you can apply for a small grow production license. And that will allow you to sell your product to a legal production person and to the LPs, and the LPs will distribute your cannabis. But they will also be able to take the genetics from your crop and introduce them into there. And that's how they're going to expand their genre of seeds that are out there right now.
Now, with that also, because there's just constant new strains coming out all the time. Are they trying to avoid a situation where there's very popular strains that aren't available through a licensed producer because the black market,
Well, I would imagine so. Yeah, I would imagine so. And that's what they're looking to expand their market. If they're able to introduce some of the strains that are only available in dispensaries at the moment because they're grown by craft growers, if they can incorporate them into the LP system, then there's no need for us to go to the black market, so to speak, or an illegal dispensary to get it if I'm able to get it through the government.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Blair says the new rules, which would be, he says, included in Bill C-45, will ensure that organized crime does not benefit from the measure. He explained that one of the avenues being explored will be to use newly licensed micro producers who could introduce new strains on the market. So maybe they're expecting these new strains to come more through the micro producers for the LPs to get them.
Yeah, it's the micro producers, the small growers. You're going to be allowed to become legal. So you've got to apply for an application for a micro grower, and then you sell your product to the LP, and the LP sells the product to the general public.
Yeah, and on the loosening of the rules, Bill Blair also says that. They're going to allow people already involved in the cannabis business to join the legal market. He says the government intends to draw a line between those who have criminal records for personal possession and those who are involved in trafficking. So if somebody sold a few joints and got busted for that, would they be out?
Yeah, if you're charged with trafficking, then you're out. That's where they're drawing the line in the sand. So, I mean, that also includes anybody who's worked at a dispensary.
Yeah.
Right? Because they were all charged with trafficking. So if you had any involvement with the dispensary in the current raids, then you're gone.
He goes on to say that for people who have a long history of breaking the rules for criminal profit, we don't want them to compromise the integrity of the system. But for people who have been involved in producing for their own personal use and who have not been part of the larger scale criminal enterprise, then there is a place and opportunity for them to participate. So I guess there's still, it's still vague. Is it that person who got busted for selling a quarter bag to his buddy out, or is it a person who's been caught, selling pounds and pounds and pounds, for a long time?
I think they're talking about repeat offenders. So, we busted your dispensary and you opened it again tomorrow. And we busted you again next week, and you open it again tomorrow. When we busted you again, well, no, you're not coming in.
Yeah.
So forget it. If you got popped once when you were, 19 years old and you're 60 now or 55 now or some stupid thing, or 40 now even, then, we can probably let you in.
Yeah, maybe. We'll decide.
Yeah, but it's still,
we'll let you know at the time.
We'll look at the whole picture and then we'll decide. But I mean, they're absolutely picking and choosing the sort of, I guess, lifestyle of people that they want in here. For sure, there's no question about it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, hey, it's all changes as things go along. And talking about going along, we're going to stick in Ontario still. And what is this next story about, Kim?
Ontario and cannabis lounges. It looks like we're coming to terms. This has been a big issue for the province of Ontario, mainly because a lot of condominiums, apartment building complexes, large multi-unit dwelling owners are up in arms about the new legislation that's coming out. Ontario government has stated in the beginning, the only place that you were allowed to consume basically was your own home. Multi-dwelling apartment units did not like that idea. A lot of them have banned smoking of tobacco products, and they plan on banning smoking of cannabis products. Well, that leaves consumers with nowhere to consume. You can't supply a legal product to the general public and then tell them they can't use it anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. You got to allow them a spot to go. That would just be a senseless law to allow people to grow cannabis, but nowhere to consume it.
Absolutely. That opened the door a little bit, and it got shoved wide open by Abby Roach and her team to have Cannabis Community Alliance that she has going there, Business Alliance. And they're fighting for equal rights as vapor lounges to supply tourists and residents alike a place to consume cannabis, and they've been lobbying for lounges, and it looks like they're going to get their wish.
So it does. It says here, several of the Ontario regulations would have provisions for both public lounges and smoking spaces in apartments and sub-business buildings. Additionally, cannabis smokers would be allowed to smoke in cigarette smoking zones, and other forms of cannabis, including edible varieties, would be allowed in hotel rooms.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a start, and it's something, because the way they were going with the legislation first came out, it was extremely rigid, and it got to the point where there was going to be nowhere to consume. So I'm glad to see that there is some change happening in this aspect, and I hope to see more.
Yeah, same here. And let's hope that they allow it to be a free market type thing, so private businesses and everything, instead of making the lounges only attached to a licensed producer, them being the only owners.
Yeah, it's got to be a free lounge for sure, a free market lounge, much like the ones that already currently exist in many cities across many provinces in this country. Mm-hmm. There are vapor lounges set up. Some of them are patient only. Others are open to the general public. There are several in Toronto that I visit frequently when I'm there, and they're all fantastic, and they all have their own theme and genre of people that go. They're already a booming industry, a needed space in the city. When legalization comes full blown, I can see businesses like this thriving.
Yeah, for sure. And they're going to need more. If they're only going to open 140 or 150 stores to sell the cannabis, let's hope they open enough lounges.
Yes.
They're not going to do it for the stores.
Yeah. There's going to be a place to consume. So I hope to see a great expansion on lounges opening up across the province for patients and non-patients alike to start consuming the newly legalized product in this country.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And talking about legalize, there are some people that were hoping for a judge's ruling in our next story about some raids that happened in 2016 at medical cannabis stores, which also was known as Project Claudia.
Yeah, Mark Stupak, co-owner of the SoCo Medical Cannabis Social Collective, was charged in 2016 with medical marijuana for the purpose of trafficking. And we've been awaiting news on this for a while.
Yes, he was represented by Alan Young, who is well known in the cannabis community. He had argued the charges were unconstitutional because no clear-cut laws were in place at the time to provide relief for legitimate medical cannabis users his client was selling to.
That's right. Alan Young argued that marijuana retailers had the moral authority to fill the void by providing products to the medical users over the counter to fill the gap. That was leaving.
But in the judge's ruling, she says that she denied the application. Said, nope, that's not going through. And she said there was a valid exempting regime for medical cannabis at the time that the applicants were charged. Well, no, there wasn't. No. At that time, all there was dry herb.
That's right.
Maybe there might have been some getting into the smalls, but there was nothing that is equal to or equivalent to what is available when it comes to these places because of all the alternatives, which Health Canada isn't rushing to deal with.
Yeah, and so sadly, the ruling is that, yes, the raids were constitutional. So I don't know where we go from here on this case. I'm really not sure if there is where we go from here. I think it goes against the original ruling and perhaps it needs to go back to that.
Well, it goes, this is the Smith case for our history moment, where in 2015, the Supreme Court of Canada ruled that medical cannabis users should be allowed access to a variety of cannabis products.
Right. So, I mean, here we have an instance where we've got a Supreme Court ruling, and yet a lower court isn't upholding that. So where do you take that?
Yeah.
What do you do with that?
I don't know what the future plans on this case, but it'd be very interesting to see if they appeal this and go forward.
Yeah,
more
for
on
sure.
it.
And I'm sure it's much on Alan Young's mind. I'm sure that that's not sitting very lightly with him.
No, I don't imagine it is either. So, alrighty. I think we've got the plane fired up again.
Yes, we're off and running one more time in the jet.
Yes, we are. Across the big pond. We've got an article here. It's in The Conversation. It's written by Musa Sami, a researcher and academic psychiatrist at King's College in London. Yeah. And his question is, if cannabis is getting stronger, why aren't there cases of schizophrenia rising? Which goes back to our earlier story about the government labeling.
Yes.
And this is a very good question, and which has also been one that has been asked by other researchers like Dr. Lester Grinspoon.
Yes. People are trying to push the fact that cannabis use can cause schizophrenia and other mind-affecting disorders. They're also proponents of the fact, they say it is a fact, that cannabis is now far more potent than it used to be. Well, if these two things occur simultaneously, then absolutely math tells us that there should be an increased rate of schizophrenia happening.
There sure should be. And since 1960, cannabis potency rates have risen in many countries. And if cannabis were causing psychosis, we could expect that as this increase, the rates of schizophrenia, etc., would increase alongside it. But it hasn't happened.
That's right. There's been no increased rates dominating the stats saying that there's higher rates of schizophrenia or any mental illness that could be related to cannabis use. The numbers just don't line up.
No, they don't. And, it's very, he's got a big question there. They did a survey where they asked 1,231 cannabis users about their experiences, where they used cannabis and calculated a pleasurable experience score and a psychotic-like experiences.
Yeah.
And,
and they say those who reported pleasurable experiences continued to use the drug and had no intention of quitting.
Yeah, but those that had a psychotic-like experience had either stopped or were thinking about quitting in the future. So maybe these people are realizing it's, bad for them and they're stopping and,
Yeah, I don't like it, so I'm not doing that again. Yeah. And then it's done. I mean, it doesn't continue. You don't continue doing something that doesn't bring you pleasure. So of course they don't continue to use the substance. So there's no issue. I mean, where are the underlying issues here?
Yeah. It's just it'd be interesting. It's these other researchers, like I said, have asked the same thing. There's more and more cannabis being used out there. And we're not seeing these numbers go up. They're just staying steady.
Yep, that's it. So one more notch in the belt for science there, and a fairly simple, logical question that brings a lot of fact to light.
There is less than 1% of the population has schizophrenia. And they said even if cannabis use was doubled, like the use of it was doubling the risk, 98% of the cannabis users wouldn't develop schizophrenia anyways.
Nope. No, so the numbers, there you go. The numbers don't line up. So once again, we're showing our wonderful government of Canada, your warning labels are nothing more than propaganda, and we really need to try and get away from that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Exactly. Well, in our cross-Atlantic jet here, we've come back to Canada because of we're seeing, these, we mentioned those raids, Project Claudia raids, and the raids are still happening here in Canada, but they're finding out, that's not stopping the illegal shops from opening.
Yeah, it's not stopping the illegal shops from opening, and arresting the bud tenders and the people that are behind the counter and running through them through the system is not helping anything or anyone. Their charges on a mass scale are being thrown out of court. All you're doing is wasting taxpayers' dollars and court time and court costs and clogging our system. We're seeing time and time again, more often, where heavy criminals and major crimes are walking free because of an untimely trial. And largely that's due to nonsensical charges being placed against basically innocent people for doing a job.
Yeah, exactly. They said that in Ottawa, for example, since they had those big raids, there have been at least 24 more police operations aimed at shutting down the illegal dispensaries within the city. The raids have yielded 100 charges against 43 people, but it's not the owners. It's just the low-hanging fruit, as they like to say, that are getting arrested.
Yep. Not a single dispensary owner has faced arrest to date, according to McAleese, who said the charges have been abandoned, or some of them have been abandoned by their employers, and most were forced to rely on legal aid. Thankfully, most of the charges for these people have been dropped and thrown out of court because the courts are the ones in the end that realize these are basically innocent people that are just looking for work.
Yeah, they are looking for work, and it's sometimes jobs are really scarce, and people are working here. They're trying to help other patients in some of these situations. Some of them are the 19 plus. Some of these are played out dispensaries for medical reasons, and they're ending up getting spending a few hours maybe at the beginning in jail just to get through the process, and then after that, charges are being dropped.
Yep, charges are being dropped and dismissed out of court. Thank God for logical judges that we have here in Ontario that see that this is not the way to do things, and all you're doing is clogging the courts, and they're getting rid of them in leaps and bounds. Anybody that has not taken a plea deal offered by the Crown and has gone before a justice has had the charges dismissed.
They say it's a trend that's seen in Ontario. In Toronto, the Crown withdrew charges against half of the roughly 600 cannabis dispensary employees that were arrested in since 2016. And in Hamilton, 60 workers charged since 2016. Only one of the 9 sentenced to date received a criminal conviction.
Yeah. 5
have had charges withdrawn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They compare it to a game of whack-a-mole. The police do. They say, they crack down on one and 2 more pop up.
Yeah. People are willing to take the risk.
Yeah, people are willing. Well, it's because the people that are making the money aren't really losing anything except product on hand. And that's easy enough to obtain and open up a new one next door.
Yeah, well, I know at some point there was some owners that were helping with court costs, but I don't know.
Yes, absolutely. And there's several owners that are helping with the court costs, and they're standing behind their employees. There's a couple, not very many. There are a small percentage of them that did not stand by employees, and that's a shame to see that that's happening. But most have stood up beside their employees. Most employees that were working at these establishments knew the risk as well. Some maybe perhaps did not, but the vast majority knew the risk.
Well, even now, the police are beginning to question whether the raids are doing, arresting these employees is doing any good, because they're questioning it now. Ottawa Police Inspector Murray Knowles says, "I think it's an application of the wrong tool, that being the criminal code. It would certainly be better for us and better for the problem if we could go after the owners."
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And until they do anything along those lines, all of these raids, the teardowns, the takedowns, the fingerprinting, the charges, bringing people back and forth to court, it's nothing more than a waste of time and taxpayer dollars.
Big time, exactly. It's a waste of their time. It's a waste of everybody's time. Court cases. We got murderers who are being let out of jail because they're not getting the court time.
Yep.
Stop arresting law-abiding citizens for something as simple as cannabis, and that will help free up that court time.
Absolutely. I mean, and especially when cannabis does so much on a medical basis.
Oh, for sure. And talking about being helpful, let's jump on our jet again, and we'll head out west.
Yes, sounds great. Medical basis cannabis, doing many things out in Vancouver. We're going to stop in and visit with a friend of ours, Neil Magnuson, is in the news from Vandu, Victoria Cannabis Club, that substitution program that they have out there, where they're helping opiate addicts and alike get off of hard drugs and with the help of cannabis products.
Yeah, well, last week they had roughly 150 people lined up at the Vancouver area network of drug users, which is Vandu, at their building on East Hastings Street. And people were let in and were given a free bag of cannabis products. And depending on the week and stuff like that, packages contain different things. But they could contain 2 or 3 kinds of edibles, a couple of joints, a capsule of THC oil, and sometimes, who knows, maybe some infused honey or something.
Yeah. There's always several edibles, munchy type edibles, as well as single serving and double serving type edibles, smokables, consumables of all types. THC and CBD infused products are known to help greatly with the effects of withdrawal.
Yeah, it sounds like the dog's out.
Yeah, sorry about that. But yeah, THC helps greatly with the effects of withdrawal when you're coming off of drugs and you're wanting to get clean and sober. So fantastic initiative being taken by Vandu and Neil Magnuson and friends.
Well, they mentioned a fellow here by the name of Brad Williamson. He's involved in the program. He rolls joints and stuff like that for them. He's a recovering heroin user. He said in the 2 years he has been complementing his methadone use with cannabis, he has not relapsed. He's sticking on this cannabis maintenance program, and it's benefiting. It's helping him.
Yeah, absolutely. In 2017, there was a study conducted with 122 crack cocaine users from the lower downtown east side, and they found that cannabis use helped reduce the frequency of crack and cocaine use. And another study of 25 crack cocaine users in Brazil saw 68% of them stopped using cocaine and crack cocaine altogether over a 9-month period when supplied with regular cannabis use.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, Mr. Williamson here says that for him, edibles work great.
Yeah.
Relieving his symptoms. People are always thinking about smoking all the time, eh? So I thought I'd point that out. This guy, he likes the edibles.
Yeah, the edibles, the oil capsules work very well. They keep a more of a steady stream in your system. A lot of people are now looking towards keeping that in the patch form as well, much as we get other medications delivered to us that gives us a steady stream constantly. So you don't have the roller coaster up and down effect of coming down off of it and feeling the effects of whatever you're fighting.
Now, is it Neil's looking for some support from City Hall on this initiative?
Yeah, he's looking for some support to City Hall. He wrote a letter to explain what they're doing because he keeps getting hassled by the police. He's got tables set up outside and stuff like that where he's trying to pass out this as a medicine, and he keeps getting hassled by police and getting told, you can't do that here. So he's fighting for the right to help people.
Yeah, well, let's hopefully, he's, he's making some noise. And hopefully he gets an answer.
Yeah,
they get
absolutely.
behind him on this.
We'll
they
find
want
out a whole lot more about all of this. Actually, just a little plug while we're on the subject. Neil Magnuson will be a future guest on the Pace Radio Show this coming May.
Yes, that's right. He will. So we'll be able to hear all about that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, let's make our way to the last story of the day.
The last story of the day.
Yeah, we're gonna
down to Trump land, I think.
The jet's gone to Trump land. We're not going to call it Air Force One. We're going to call it the 420 Airlines.
420 Airlines.
Now, and this is what's going on here is the U.S. president has said that drug dealers will now have a possibility. Well, once legislation passed and all, of suffering the death penalty.
Yeah. You're convicted of a drug crime in the United States. They want the death penalty to be on the table for that. So, you're caught selling, half a pound or a pound of weed or something. You might get lethal injection for that.
Well, and the worst thing is, he was talking about all this and everything. He mentioned about drug dealers and death penalties, but he did not acknowledge the difference between a regulated cannabis business and a heroin kingpin.
That's right. So a regulated cannabis business, say, one of the industries that's in Washington, California, anywhere like that, they're legal drug dealers. Right now in the United States. Cannabis is a drug as far as they're concerned in the federal government down there. So, they're right now legal drug dealers. They may be legal in their state, but not according to Sessions. They're an illegal company. But Enrique from Colombia there, he can ship up, 10,000 keys of cocaine. You guys are going to get the same sentence.
Yeah. And the memo that was released by Jeff Sessions just said that for dealing in extremely large quantities of drugs, that they could be seeking the death penalty. So there's no
give or take. There's no give nothing. Or take. They're all drug dealers.
Yeah.
They're all drug dealers according to Mr. Sessions.
Oh, big time. And you can see they're going to be fighting against this, obviously. Well,
obviously, because how can you do business in the legal states if you're going to be pinned as a drug dealer by Jeff Sessions?
Yeah. Now, there's been some talk over the last year, even here in Canada, somebody who sells some fentanyl and that person ODs, should they be charged with murder? Nobody's talking about death penalty in Canada, but
yeah. I mean, there's a difference between that and selling a legal pound of weed to a dispensary.
Yeah, big time. And there's no acknowledgement of this whatsoever. And I can see why, businesses, are they gonna take a governor and say, well, you're gonna allow all these cannabis sales to happen, so your state is a drug dealer, so we're gonna execute you.
Yeah. I mean, the governor is a participant in that. Are they going to go after him with RICO down there?
No. So it'll be interesting to see what happens as time goes along, and we'll update our listeners. See what happens.
Absolutely. We'll be keeping an eye on this story for sure.
Okay, Kim. Well, what do you think?
I think we're at the end of our travels. I've already got jet lag, and now I got to get on another plane in 2 days. So,
exactly. Well, you have a good time in Las Vegas. We're interested to see how your experiences was going down, and we'll probably be next week Tuesday instead of Monday because of your trip.
Yes, that's correct. Reefer Reporters next week will be heard around 4:20 at some point on Tuesday instead of our usual Monday. I'll be in transit on Monday.
All righty. Okay. All right. Well, that's our Reefer Report for March the 20th to the 26th of 2018. And in closing, we'd like to say thank you for listening. And if you want to help educate others, please share our report with your educated and uneducated friends and relatives. Until the next time, don't forget, it's educate, medicate, do not incarcerate.
So what are you doing? Nothing. Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.